Chip Kelly back in the NFL, but not with the Texans. What went wrong? I think it's pretty easy to follow that. Plus, speaking of follow, the NFL and their controversy takes a back seat after the big news this weekend in sports. Special live Sunday edition of The Locker Room on YouTube.
It's The Locker Room on YouTube. You know what it is. Let's get it. Hey, Locker Room. Yeah, we in the locker room. Texas talk, yeah, you know what we about to do. Localize, every angle's what we really do. We the source, we the pulse of the city too. Landlocked, got the game in the head.
It is the Locker Room, number one source for Texans digital content. I am Landry Locker. It is Sunday. Normally we're Monday to Friday. And when special news breaks, we'll throw out a video. Threw one out today. Chip Kelly, the big news. Chip Kelly is back in the NFL. It ain't going to be with the Texans. Now, very simple. We found this out after I put out the original video. He got $6 million to be the OC for the Raiders. According to Front Office Sports, and I sent this tweet out, that would have made him tied as the 12th highest paid coach in the entire NFL. 12th highest paid coach in the NFL. So he's back. He's with the Raiders. And quite frankly, I can't really blame the Texans for not giving Chip Kelly $6 million. That might be more than Nico. And that's just, it's not going to fly. $6 million is a lot of money. I know there's no salary cap for coaches. Coordinators are important. But $6 million is a hell of a lot of money for Chip Kelly. Now, the question is, were the Texans ever interested in Chip Kelly? We may never know that. I got a message on Twitter from someone who said he saw him at the airport. He showed me a selfie, showed me a picture, asked people at Ohio State. They said that he was on the recruiting trail. Haven't really gotten a firm answer as to whether he did or didn't speak with the Texans. But it doesn't matter. It's a moot point. He's going to the Raiders. $6 million is a hell of a lot of money. And we don't know whether or not the Texans were or weren't interested. Now, the one thing we do know is he could have been had. Might have been a lot, but he could have been had. $6 million, a lot, but he was willing to come back to the NFL. He wasn't just going to stay at Ohio State, just to stay at Ohio State. So there it is. Chip Kelly not coming to Houston. So now the question is, and this has really been the question the whole time, we're about 10 days into the life after Bobby era, where Bobby Slowick is no longer with us.
Damn it, Bobby.
And I got to be honest with you. I'm starting to wonder what the hell's going on here. I figured they had an idea of who they wanted and that by this time we would have some sort of idea who they're going to hire. But at this point, the question is, who the hell are they going to hire? I think this is one of the most blah coaching searches that I've ever witnessed. And I've covered all of them in some way, shape, or form back to the O'Brien coaching search. This is really blah. A lot of these guys, a lot of question marks. Any of the candidates that we know that they've interviewed, there's a lot of question marks. Now, they can be sold and there can be some intrigue. And home run hires don't always equate to success, but a lot of blah when it comes to this search. And my whole thing is this. I think you can argue about either one of these candidates. I think some people are just trying a little too hard to argue for these guys. Like there's a Nixon portion. There's Kaylee, who would be my choice. There's a Gerard. I mean, all of these people have as many question marks as they do sales pitches. And I think a lot of people are learning on the fly. I mean, before the whole thing, there was no talk about Nixon. There was no talk about Brian Johnson. Kaylee was obviously a popular choice. But at this point, I just want to see who the guy is. I want to assess those specific question marks rather than having a pillow fight about whether or not he's the right candidate. Because I think you can slice and dice any of these guys, and there can be a moderate sell. But I'm not, if I feel strongly about something, I'm going to stick my chest out and say, yeah, I want this to happen. But I don't feel strongly enough about any of these offensive candidates to the point where I almost thought to myself, and it might have just been a little bit of a lapse. Might have been just a little bit of a lapse. By the way, big news over the weekend. We're going to localize that and bring that to the NFL. We'll do that in about 20 minutes. And it's a real simple journalism lesson that my professor once taught me. that I think we can use it to talk about Chip Kelly, and we can use it to talk about the biggest news in sports this week. But I don't feel very strongly about any of these offensive coordinating candidates, to the point where I was sitting around today and I was thinking to myself, okay, I'm reading some messages that I get. I dabble in the comments every once in a while. Mainly the chat is where I interact, a little bit on Twitter. I try to interact as much as possible, not at like some sort of obsessive rate. But I asked myself this. Would bringing back Bobby Slowick have been the worst thing compared to what we're talking about right now? And I'm not saying the answer is yes to that question, but I'm looking at these names and I'm getting sold Gerard Johnson. I'm getting sold Bill Lazor. I'm getting sold Nixon. Now all of a sudden, Green Bay, you got to have the offensive line coach for the Green Bay Packers. You got to have Josh McCown's assistant quarterback coach, whatever the hell it is, with the Minnesota Vikings. And I'm just wondering, like, would it have been the worst thing to bring back Bobby Slowick? The answer is probably, but would it have been? Do they know what they're doing? Did I give this front office too much credit? I said that when they fired Bobby Slowick, they knew what they were going to do. Do they know what they were going to do? That's my question. Do they know what they're going to do? Are we just trying to figure this out? It's a very blah coaching search. It's a very blah coaching search. I just want to get this going. Andy on the super chat says they need to hand Kaylee the bag now. How much is a bag? How much we talking a couple million, 3 million? Damn sure not talking 6 million, right? Man's in LA. McVay understudy. Nick Caserio is familiar with him. How much of a bag do they need to hand him? Was it money? Did Chip Kelly want to go to the Raiders? Look at the job that Chip Kelly just took. And it's really kind of a moot point because $6 million is $6 million. But that's not like some sort of ideal situation. I do wonder how appealing offensive coordinators look at this gig. How appealing is it? Are they excited to work with CJ Stroud, Nico, Nick Caserio? How appealing is it? Now, on one hand, I might be kind of talking out of both ends. And I could be sitting here and I could be saying it's not like a real appealing process. But I mean, it's not, I can't like sit here and act like Mike McCarthy or Doug Peterson are realistic options, or even would be better options, being former head coaches. So it's just kind of a blah job. And I don't care about who has this experience or that experience. I think there's unconventional ways of hiring coaches. I'm just kind of blot out by this. Just kind of blot out by this. You got Roberto saying it.
Damn it, Bobby.
Saying bring back Bobby Slowick. Bring back Bobby Slowick. Rhonda H. I'm leaning towards Nick Caley, but don't know what direction they're going. Our offense is a crapshoot. I don't trust Caserio. He's an overthinker. I don't think Caserio really had much to do with the OC last time. I do think Caserio thinks a lot. I don't know if he's an overthinker or not when it comes to this. Trey _ Texas. At this point, it's slimmer and slimmer pickings. Get the OC pick wrong again, and a few upper management jobs will be on the block. So you're saying this is Caserio's ass if they don't get it right? Maybe. Steve says Nixon does have play calling experience. I don't care. That's cool. But I mean, he had to get it at some point, right? Like at some point, he had to get that experience. I get like the want to hire someone experience. That's cool, I guess. But at some point, you got to get it. You got to be unconventional. You don't just be. I don't support like just lazy hires. You know, the guy's been doing it a long time, so let's just keep him around lingering. I don't believe in that. That's not my case against Gerard Johnson. My case against Gerard Johnson has nothing to do with the fact that he hasn't called plays before. My question is, I'm hearing all these cases for all these candidates about their awesome experience. I don't see it with Gerard Johnson. Quick elevation. Went to Indianapolis when their offense sucked. 1 year with Kirk Cousins with the Vikings. Before that, he was in the San Francisco 49ers program. And then he was doing Elite 11 stuff, which is basically camps, which is cool. That's good coaching. That's like a practice type of thing. That's not OCing. And now he was here and he was part of the coaching staff that I think most people, including myself, I won't say people, thought sucked. And I saw someone was talking to me earlier today and said, you know, he's had a big hand in CJ Stroud's development. Is that good after this year? It's not bad, but is that something good? Like, has the arrow been pointing up on that? Frank on the chat says, hey, what's wrong with Bill Lazor? Bill never had a QB. You probably say that about a lot of guys that didn't have success. I don't look. I watched Pep Hamilton and Tim Kelly when they didn't have a quarterback, and it was very blah. So there are specifics. There's nuance to it. Didn't have a QB. Don't know how much that really means at all. EM says kind of curious as to if Slowick had another year to evolve his offense, how it would look. I think in the second year, teams just knew what he was doing based on his first year. Yeah, and that's a problem. That's the problem. You got to be able to adjust. And there were specific situations that just weren't related to personnel. And in fairness to him, there were times where personnel was clearly a problem. You got to overcome that in some way, shape, or form. But it's not just one thing. Chase says everyone got blamed on the offensive staff except Gerard, CJ, Stroud, Shield. It's hard to argue that. We talked about,
damn it, Bobby,
nonstop. We talked about, I think even the tight end coach, Moreland, kind of got to wonder what's up with him. Chris Strausser had an awkward-ass media availability out of nowhere. He's the only position coach during the regular season that had that. I mean, we talked about everyone. We didn't talk about the quarterback coach. And this is when the quarterback clearly wasn't himself for a number of reasons. So it'll be interesting. You know, I look forward to, you know, if they decide to go the Gerard route, my question would be this, and this is my biggest problem with it. Why didn't you do this last year? When it was apparent that the offense wasn't going to get better, when you had the bye week, why not get a look at what was going on then? Why not do that last year? Kind of feels like there was an opportunity. Could have seen what was going on. Andy says OC candidates may not want to deal with the bad guy to the O-line right off the bat. Bad guy to the O-line right off the bat. I mean, I don't know, like, what candidates are they overlooking? You know, and that's why it is blah. It's just kind of a blah process, and that's fine. There's a lot of times where we're talking about home run hires and stuff, and it doesn't work out. This is just blah. You tell people CJ regressed, and he did. I think he admits that too. And they act like calling his career over. No, this can make him better. They're going to have to make this hire right. If you want to help the O-line, then it's going to be Stinovich. I don't know if that's true. So no one else can help the O-line? Like it has to be a guy who is an O-line coach? Know if that's true. Maybe, don't know. Look, I'm very, 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 very scarred by O-line coach talk just from around here. I always hear how awesome these O-line coaches are. They come here, they suck. From Campin to Warhop to Strausser, they come here and they suck. They get in here and they're terrible. But Chip, the other thing about Chip Kelly here in the locker room, number one source for Texans digital content, Chip making money makes you feel better, right? Chip taking the money, it makes you feel better, right? Or does it make you feel worse? Like, is there anyone that's saying, damn, the Texans should have given Chip Kelly $6 million and $6 million and $1? Like, damn, they really, that $6 million makes sense for Chip Kelly. Top half of the head coach salaries in the league for an OC. That makes a lot of sense. If he'd gone to Las Vegas and it was just a normal, like, let's say he got $1 million raise, it was $3 million, then I think you could start questioning some things. You could start wondering, okay, well, were they not willing to match that? Whatever, $6 million, that's a lot. And there's also a kind of I think a myth about Chip Kelly that he wasn't good in the NFL. He wasn't a good head coach and he wasn't a good overseer. But in his first 2 seasons, he won as many games as Nico Ryans in a shorter season. He went 10-6 twice. His division was better, so he didn't win the division the second time around, but he went 10-6. He had a top 5 offense the first 2 years in Philadelphia. The third year, I think they were top 13, which is better than the Texans were. And then in San Francisco, they were basically rebuilding. It was plummeted. The advanced stats were nice. So it's not like it was just a complete ass offense process in the NFL. And the other thing is, if we're talking about quarterbacks, he had top 5 offense with Nick Foles. They traded for Sam Bradford. That was kind of a disaster. Still a top 12 offense, though. And then he went to San Francisco, and they were fine. So he took the money, $6 million. It's a lot of bread. No thank you on the chat. So we'll see how that whole thing goes. It ain't my money, pay the man. And there's no salary cap for coaches. They're important, though. I do find that interesting with NFL owners, where even the ones that aren't cheap, they find ways to be cheap with coaching staffs, which is crazy. Adam Spillane over at Sports Radio 610, he was saying that coordinators can be more important than head coaches. That's absolutely the case. Like, are we talking about Andy Reid as one of the best coaches of all time if he doesn't have Spags as his DC? Who knows? I think coordinators should be inducted into the Hall of Fame almost like another position. Head coach is quarterback, coordinator is what, wide receiver, running back, or something like that. But it's almost frowned upon if you weren't a head coach. It's ass backwards. They'll get some coordinators in, but it's important. Not everyone can be a head coach. Not every head coach can be a coordinator, but they're all important, all of them. So it should be looked at that way. It's a weird thing to penny pinch. And I don't think $6 million is penny pinching. But it is interesting that there's no salary cap in that area. The other side of the Chip Kelly thing is they weren't interested. If they weren't interested, why not? Outside of money, why would you not be interested in Chip Kelly? I keep hearing what LaShawn McCoy said. LaShawn McCoy says a lot. He says a lot of things. Well, his players don't like. Well, D'Amico Ryan seems to like him. At least he acts like he does. His players don't like him. Okay. They seem to do okay at Ohio State this year. But I don't know. Fifth Ward Texans 2002 says Houston never likes to spend money. If you want the best, you have to pay, simple and plain. I don't know if I agree with that, especially with Cal McNair. When have they been cheap with Cal McNair? Like at Cal McNair's Texans, when have they been cheap? Give me an example. They fired Bill O'Brien and paid him. We're still paying him. They fired Brian Game. We're still paying him. They fired Jack Easterby. Was still paying him. David Culley and Lovie Smith, they still paid them. Man, they're bad with money. They might be dumb. They might have made some dumb calls. Although Lovie and Culley, 1 year, whatever. But they paid them a hell of a lot of money. I don't know that they've been cheap. Houston never likes to spend money. Don't know about that. Don't know if the Texans do that. The facilities, it seems like they give them all that they want. If you want to coach, they typically let you go get it. I don't know. Don't know if that's true. Yeah, the McNairs are never cheap. They spend money. Yes, not always the best. They were cheap not wanting to pay Saquon. We don't know that. Maybe. But how is it cheap if they go pay Dalton Schultz $13 million? This goes back to like there's a difference between cheap and there's a difference between not spending your money wisely. Because they spent as much salary cap money as they could spend last year. They had a line in the sand for Saquon Barkley, but they paid Dalton Schultz top 5 tight end money. They gave Titus Howard an extension, made him one of the highest paid tackles. They made Shaq Mason one of the highest paid guards. They spend money dumb. They spend money dumb. But I don't know. I don't know that they were cheap on Saquon. Maybe they didn't pay him enough or offer him enough. But it's not like they just took that money and put it under a mattress. They kept the money. They kept the money. Roy's being mean. He says half these people are just typing, bro. You might be right. It's all good. We got time tonight. Schultz was a scrub last season. Yeah, he wasn't good. He wasn't good at all. So we'll see what happens with his Chip Kelly thing. But he's back in the NFL, and the Texans are still looking for an OC. It's going to be an interesting result. I'm just ready for the result. Content comes every night. Content comes every afternoon, usually in the morning as well. It's just not exciting. I'm ready for the draft. I want to be able to really dive in and see what one of these candidates does. I had someone ask me the other day, who are you going all in on? I'm not going all in on any of these candidates. If I had to pick someone, I'd say Nick Caley. That would be my guy. My guy would be Nick Caley. No question. I mean, that'd be it. He makes the most sense of all these guys. That would be where I'd go. But all in, I don't have an all in for you. Not even a little bit. Hire Caley and let's go. Wouldn't mind it. The Gerard Johnson thing would be funny. It'd be funny. I mean, it'd be interesting. If that doesn't work, it looks really bad. If Nick Caley doesn't work, Nixon doesn't work, any of these other guys doesn't work, okay, you tried something new. But if Gerard doesn't work, it just looks weird. Because the second guessing is valid. Like if you're second guessing the other guys, it's this offense, it's where you go through, well, this offense didn't do that offense didn't do that. We don't know like the nuance of all that when it comes to the certain situations. But if you're questioning Gerard Johnson, it's because you watched CJ Stroud this year, you watched this offense, and you don't know what it's going to look like. That would be the one that would look the worst. I don't even fault him. I've said this multiple times. I don't fault him for hiring Bobby Slowick. It failed. It's clearly a failure. You're looking for an OC 2 years later with your quarterback. You're going into the final year of your quarterback not being extension eligible, and you're getting him a new offensive coordinator. Not because the guy you hired got hired by another team, but because it didn't work out and it was a clear lost cause in year 2. That's failure. There's different layers of failure. There's different expectations. Like the 2 years before this, we didn't expect David Culley or Lovie Smith to do much. They didn't hire those guys to be long-term. Deshaun Watson was still on the roster when the hires were made. It was dead money. They had $50 million in dead money. They didn't have draft picks for years before that. They hadn't even gotten the Deshaun Watson draft equity. Furthermore, in those 2 years, They were able, because they suck so bad, to acquire Derek Stingley, arguably the best corner in football, and CJ Stroud, for whatever the hell we want to say about him, one of the best young quarterbacks in the league as a result of that. Then they got their assets up. Then they became an appealing gig. Then they could pick any head coach, and we're past the David Culley, Lovie Smith there, and they got D'Amico Ryans. And D'Amico Ryans had to figure out who he wanted to oversee his offense. He picked Bobby Slowick.
Damn it, Bobby.
And now here we are looking for a gig. That's a failure. That wasn't a goal. That wasn't like a process over results, as Nick Caserio said it. So there's different layers of this thing when it comes to expectations. My favorite thing, I tell this story all the time. Y'all hear it all the time. My favorite thing was when an NFL player was nose to nose with one of my mentors, and he was pissed off about something he said and wrote. And the guy simply said to him, "You came into this league with these expectations. Based on your actual performance and the realistic expectations, they're up to here. Do you want me to lower them down here, or do you want me to hold you to this standard?" Said it with a straight face. Mutual respect right there. You can say you don't like, I don't have to sit here based on the result and say hiring Bobby Slowick was an idiotic move. No, I mean, I didn't think it at the time. And I don't think, based on what we'd seen from Mike McDaniel in that small sample size, based on the fact that D'Amico Ryans had experience with him, based on the fact that CJ Stroud had a historic rookie season, it didn't work out. I actually give D'Amico Ryans credit for having the balls to fire him. But based on what we expect and based on what the assets were and based on what they were, it was a failure. There's different layers of failure. Different layers. What do you want the Texans to be? It's not, you're not losing your fan card if you hold the Texans to a different expectation and you hold D'Amico Ryans and Nick Caserio to a higher standard in 2023 and 2024 than you did in 2021 and 2022. You're not losing your fan card. You're not saying CJ Stroud sucks if you say that he regressed last year. You're saying his expectations are higher. It's not the end all be all. It's not the end result. It's just kind of what it is. That's what their expectations are. If Johnny's in honors math and he fails honors math, and then Timmy's in intermediate and he fails, it doesn't mean that you're supposed to say, well, Johnny's in honors, so, Timmy did the same thing. Timmy would have been on the 2021-2022 Texans. Johnny's in the 2023-2024. That's where the expectations are. So it's not the end all be all to say it was a failure. Didn't work out. This wasn't their goal. This wasn't their vision for what they wanted. Watch them hire Jason Garrett. Come on, brother. Come on. That's not being crazy now. Eric asks, is it possible that as good as Tunsil is, that he sets a bad example for the other linemen? I'm not saying trade him. I'm asking the question. Maybe it's a respect issue. I don't think every offensive lineman can move like Laremy Tunsil. I don't think every offensive lineman is as talented as Laremy Tunsil. I think Laremy Tunsil moves a certain way. When I've interviewed him in the past, I've asked him about it. It's a certain way. I will say this about Laremy Tunsil. Laremy Tunsil's really good at what he does. Laremy Tunsil takes care of his body like a mofo. If you're going to copy Laremy Tunsil, copy that diet. I think every offseason, Laremy Tunsil has come in better shape than the time before. For someone who has perhaps a well-deserved Hollywood kind of diva-ish vibe, and he's all business, when it comes to controlling what he can control and rolling in, the dude's always in shape. I don't know whether this is true or not, but I do think that it might, like when you look up to certain guys and you look up to guys that are at a certain point, a lot of times you can try to copy assets that they have that you might not have the skill set or the ability to have. The example I'll use, all these failed New England Patriots assistants under Bill Belichick, they copied the bullshit. They copied the shtick. They copied the entitlement. They copied the grumpiness. They copied the I invented football. I don't think they had the grind that Bill Belichick had. I think they copied the wrong things. Bill O'Brien could go to the podium and he could say capital T, capital E, capital A, capital M, but he wasn't putting together game plans like Bill Belichick. Matt Patricia was telling reporters to stand up straight. His defensive game plans weren't the same as Bill Belichick. So a lot of these guys, they copy the wrong things when it comes to guys that are elite. Like if I'm an offensive lineman and I want to copy Laremy Tunsil, I'm copying Laremy Tunsil based on his technique. I'm copying Laremy Tunsil based on the way he takes care of his body. I'm copying Laremy Tunsil based on the way in which he kind of buttons up and can kind of look out for his image. I'm not moving like Laremy Tunsil. I don't have the God-given ability of Laremy Tunsil. So I don't know whether it's a intentional thing. I just think there's certain things you can copy from certain people. I've seen a lot of people in radio, they're trying to copy Colin Cowherd. It's like, dude, you're not him. Like you're sitting there, you're making these Silicon Valley analogies, and brother, you're living in like a $600 apartment and you don't even know what Silicon Valley is. What is that? Stephen A. Smith, you're sitting there screaming and yelling. You're not putting in the grind that Stephen A. Smith's putting in. You're not being as consistent. So there's certain things to copy with Laremy Tunsil. Not necessarily some of the things that get copied. That's all I'm saying. I don't know that it's intentional. I don't think like Laremy Tunsil's not like, there's some guys that maybe they're trying to mold guys to follow. Laremy Tunsil's doing his own thing. If you want to follow Laremy Tunsil, it's because you want to follow Laremy Tunsil. He's not sitting there trying to rally the troops. This isn't like a TO situation where you're in the locker room and you're rallying guys and gossip and all that. That's not what it is. So I don't think there's anything malicious about it. He moves a different way than anyone else. And that's why he's the two-time highest paid offensive lineman of all time. So that's where that is when it comes to Tunsil. So the NFL got a little bit lucky this week. And I kind of want to try to make sense of this. I like to localize. This is an NFL channel. This is a Houston channel. So I support localized content. And even at the Royal Rumble this week, they were making fun of the Kansas City Chiefs getting all the calls with the referees. And there were talks about the NFL's dirty and what's going on here and blah, 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 yada, yada, yada. But the NFL controversy kind of took a back seat last night. I was sitting in the bed. Me and my wife were rotating the massage gun. No Justin Tucker, no Deshaun Watson. Although it probably would have been okay if it went down like that. We were rotating, hey, 20 minutes here, 20 minutes there, watching Office reruns, whatever. It was my turn to get the massage gun. And my wife says to me, she goes, whoa, Luka got traded to the Lakers for Anthony Davis. And I was like, okay, you need to quit. Yeah, your phone might have viruses. You're doing like you're playing around with some fake ass sites. She goes, no, look, it's ESPN. I was like, okay, whatever. That must be a fake site. So I also went to ESPN. I pulled it up and there it was. Luka got traded. And I immediately started scrolling through the internet. All these people were doing like emergency things. And it seems like for the last 24 hours, everyone's been trying to make sense of this. And the controversy with the NFL is just kind of getting pushed back. And this is why the NFL is the NFL and the NBA is the NBA. Because the NFL, they keep their controversies in control. They keep their controversies in control. No matter what it is, whether it's an off-field, whether it's an infield, the owners and the competition committee, they have control of the league. That it's not an out of control players type of league. It's not as corrupt. And the reality is this summer, Luka could have gotten traded and forced his way out, and it just would have been another ho-hum NBA type thing. Could have been that. Has my wife heard my impression of her? Yes, she has. 100,000%. Don't know what the hell Chase is Turbo Duran's talking about. We're going to put you in timeout. You're a weirdo. SSG lesson. You're being a weirdo too. We're going to put you in lesson in timeout as well. We're not trying to get political. But everyone's tried to make sense of this from a basketball perspective, and it's impossible to do. But this thing can make a lot of sense if you just do what my journalism professor told me to do back in the day. And it's the number one lesson when you're trying to make sense of something. When you're trying to find out why something happened. More times than not, if you're trying to get to the bottom of it, the number one rule in journalism, shout out to Pete Bruton and rest in peace to Robert Wernsman. RIP. But the number one journalism lesson is follow the money. And when you do that, a lot of times you can find the solution. And this is very easy. And for all the talk about the Chiefs and the Texans got screwed over and all that, it is not near as dirty as the NBA. Follow the bread. This is really, 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 really easy. And we'll just focus on facts. We won't even give opinions here. We'll just give facts. Facts only. Facts only. We're going to follow the money when it comes to the NBA. Fact number one, we know the NBA ratings have been bad. It's gotten a lot of attention. That's a fact. Fact number two, we know that the NBA has talked about moving to Las Vegas, and they're currently embracing gambling. LeBron James is even doing gambling commercials. And Mark Cuban just sold his team to people in the casino business. That's fact number two. Casino business, maybe not the best interest of the team. That's fact number two. Fact number three, and this is where we go with the Nike connection. Fact number three, the Mavericks GM, Nico Harrison, said that he only talked to Rob Pelinka. He didn't even try to shop one of the top players in the NBA. That's fact number three. Fact number four, Nico Harrison is a former Nike employee before he went with the Mavericks. Fact number four. Fact number five, Luka is somewhat of a new Nike guy and potentially the future face of the brand. That's fact number five. Fact number six, Rob Pelinka was Kobe Bryant's agent. He's now the GM of the Lakers. Kobe Bryant, one of the biggest faces. I think Nike still sells Kobe stuff. That's fact number six. Fact number seven, to put this all together, Nike, one of the biggest partners in the NBA, probably the number one marketing tool that the NBA has, Nike. And then fact number eight, the Lakers are the marquee franchise in the NBA. They're the biggest moneymaker. Just follow the bread. It all makes sense. Everyone's trying to make sense of this from a basketball perspective. It's not even about basketball. Just follow the bread. I've seen one person defend this trade, and it was Kendrick Perkins. By the way, next fact, Kendrick Perkins, his agency, Clutch, who represents LeBron James. By the way, I didn't even mention it. LeBron James, Nike, current face of Nike, longtime face of Nike during a stale period in his career, which is kind of dragging down the marquee franchise, the marquee brand, and one of the faces. Just follow the money. NFL will figure out their stuff. NFL will figure out their stuff. They'll figure out the officiating. They have integrity. They have actual integrity. The NBA, absolute disaster. Absolute disaster. Just follow the bread. That's all it is. Very easy to see. Not tough. You can see it. Back to the OC coaching search for the Texans. Is this coaching search the most blah ever? Are you intrigued by this? Is this an intriguing search to you? I just want to be able to dig in, pause on one candidate and try to learn as much about him as possible. This Wikipedia search, and then all of a sudden you adopt like someone that you like. I'm good on that. We'll see what happens. I think there's valid trust issues. And I think the Chip Kelly thing is interesting too. Where's the line in the sand? What's the money? Chris said it sounds tinfoilish. It's facts. I laid out all facts. If that's tinfoilish, then you might need to evaluate yourself, my friend. That's a you thing. There's nothing I laid out all facts. There wasn't a single opinion there. Everything else is an opinion. Luka's fat, blah, blah, blah. The guys just talk to each other. They both have the connections. That's not tinfoilish. Fact-based stuff should not be considered tinfoilish. A lot of times when people say something's tinfoilish and it's based on fact, they're telling on themselves. That's you, Chris. Appreciate you for being here. There's nothing tinfoilish about facts. Nothing tinfoilish about money either. Promise you that. It's going to be Brian Johnson. That'll be interesting. NFL does have integrity. Teams play hard to the very end. Right now, the Chiefs are getting calls, but I mean, there's integrity. I mean, it still functions like an actual business. You don't have players like Jimmy Butler forcing their way out every other summer. You don't have players sitting out and not wanting to play. There's a lot more integrity in the NFL and the NBA. I would say that for sure. I'm more convinced in interviewing McCown. Hey, don't threaten me with a good time. Wouldn't be upset about that at all. There's a few some people would disagree with there's no Scott Fosters in the NFL. A few people would disagree. Appreciate y'all for coming through. All the candidates, the theme of this, all the candidates have questions. There's a lot to get into. Can't wait to talk to Stoots about this. I know he did his individual video. I did my individual, just brief video reaction. By the way, minutes after that, we found out about the $6 million. So a little bit there. Did a short to follow that up. But who knows? We'll figure it out no matter what happens when it comes to this Texans stuff. Hey, the content's going to keep rolling no matter what, whether it's a blah search or not optional. We're all in this together. Appreciate y'all for rolling through.
Got the game in the headlock. Localized every time. Can't stop, won't stop. Yeah, we top 2 and we not too. Plugged in daily digital on YouTube. We got taste for days. Opinions to give. We got takeaways. If it's up, then it's up. We number 1. You don't need to try your luck. Locker room, yeah, we in the locker room. Texas talk, yeah, you know what we about to do. Localize, every angle's what we really do. We the source, we the pulse of the city too.